Hello and welcome to the Wake Up Podcast. I'm Ben Cason here with Jacob Rivera. Jacob, how you doing?
Can't ever get over that.
What, the intro?
Yeah, man. That's
sweet.
very official.
Dude,
but I'm great. It's a good day.
Good.
It's a really good day, actually.
Good, man. I'm glad to have you in here. Yeah, we're bringing in people from Wake Up. So these last few weeks, we've done it. Now we're going to do it for a few more weeks after. We're bringing in you guys who know a lot about your field, and we're going to talk about, specifically today, branding. What is it? Why is it important? Why should you focus on it? So let's go ahead and break first into what is branding.
Yeah, so branding, man, I could go on for days about branding. I really feel like I could.
Yeah.
But I think there's a big misconception with branding that a lot of people think that branding is a logo. Branding is colors, fonts, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But in reality, these are all brand assets. And this is a big misconception that business owners make all the time, even designers make.
Yeah.
And I have this big philosophical approach to it, and maybe not everyone does, but I got to give credit to Chris Doe. He's a big influencer on Instagram, YouTube, all that.
Yeah.
And Marty Neumeyer. That's kind of who influences him.
Okay.
On the philosophy of branding, and he does. He kind of revolutionized the game with his book, The Brand Gap, back in early 80s, 70s. It had to have been 70s.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs was a big fan of this guy. He ended up doing a lot of stuff for Apple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to think about branding like kind of like a person. You know what I mean? When you give a personal feel to brand, people are able to love you a lot more. So if you take away, why do you love a person? You love a person because their personality, their style, the things they say, the way they think, talk, feel.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's the feeling that you get when you're interacting with a person that you want to go back to that person often. And it becomes a relationship.
Yeah.
So same thing, you replace the word person with brand, and then you have a home run knockout brand. When you could be able to have your customers think of, get a feeling from your brand.
Yeah.
That's when you got a solid brand. You know what I mean? And the logo, the color, all these things are the most important brand assets that you could have. But the thing is that people have the emotional connection.
Yeah.
To all these things that are happening that's really deep. It even comes down to, the way your employees greet your customer, the way they treat them, all these things that people start to associate with your brand.
Yeah.
And they start to get this feeling about you. It's like the same thing. Like I like to compare to Chick-fil-A. A lot of people always say, Chick-fil-A, those people are so nice and they're so caring about me and try to get me to.
My pleasure.
Yeah. They're out there to do the best job for me.
Yeah.
And when you think about Chick-fil-A, you might think of the sandwiches, but you might think of the personal connection also.
Sure.
People go back there all the time because they have that personal connection. Same thing with Apple and Nike. You have these people that are just like so attached to these things.
Yeah.
And that's the power of branding right there. That's what I think it is. You know what I mean? But
yeah, man, I agree. It's totally like, I associate myself a lot with one specific brand. That's Texas Rangers baseball. Like I wear their hats a lot. Like that's just kind of the way I am. I love that part of my look. So like when I do that, it's not because like the logo blows me away. It's not because like the colors blow me away. It's because it represents like me as a kid, like going to those games and like really enjoying that and interacting with that brand. So it's interesting you say that. I think I would agree with that statement you made.
Yeah. And it's like the association, with the logo, you get that connection to the logo, all these things, a big, huge umbrella, and then it gets wrapped up in this awesome logo
and this T
that that you're emotionally connected and invested with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense, man. Yeah. So let's transition then. Like why then is it important for me to establish my brand?
Well, I think, I always think about branding as like, whenever I talk about branding, like in a logo pitch or something like that, I always go to, what I call scaffolding. And your business is like scaffolding. And the most three important parts in my eyes are branding, marketing, and sales. Everyone needs sales. In order to get sales, you need marketing. But able to market, you need a brand. So that's where everything starts. I like to think the branding is your foundation, so to speak, on your building. And from there, you build your brand How are you going to feel? How are you going to look? How are people going to feel about you? All these things make up your brand.
Yeah.
And then you take that to the next level, which is marketing. When you're in marketing, you're communicating your brand to people. You're bringing a message to people. Hey, this is who we are.
Yeah.
This is how we feel. This is how we think about things. That's the marketing part. And hopefully, you know, marketing will convert into sales. So that's why I think that branding is extremely important. And a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people skip this step.
Yeah.
A lot of people skip this step, and you can't, I feel like it's deadly because you can't market with no brand. I mean, you could market all day. I have this product, but if you don't have the brand solidified, you're telling people come love us, but you don't have anything there. There's no substance. You know what I mean? No personality behind the product, and that's not what people go for.
So what are the big things that you need to nail down to have a brand?
Well, I mean, we always start with the logo because I always say, you know, you could also think about the brand as a person again.
Yeah.
If it is a person, the logo is the heart, basically.
Interesting.
That's the heart and soul. I've said often like branding and logo design is the heart and soul of marketing. Because it all comes down to that, but that's where you get your emotional connection. Going back to that emotional connection, that's where people are going to think. They're going to see that logo and say, I know exactly who they are. I know exactly how they make me feel, and I trust them. That's the hope. You know what I mean? You have to build that trust, but that's how they associate it. So logo number one, and then colors, you know what I mean? Because, again, it's the association. And then fonts. We call them typefaces in design, but in layman's terms, fonts.
Yeah.
And you don't ever want no more than 2 of those, just so anybody that doesn't know. Well, it could get confusing. And the same thing goes for logos and colors. A lot of people will make their logo and say, oh, I have this version. There's 10 versions. But, hey, you know, I might recognize the first version, and the second time I don't recognize it, I'll skip right past it. I don't know that company. I don't trust them. You know what I mean? But it's the same company, and that's a mistake. Or a lot of times they'll say, oh, I want 10 colors. And sometimes that works, but it has to be done in the correct way. And the same thing goes for the fonts. And this is all going back to just mental mind and connection and recognition. Brand identity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those are just the brand assets, like I said. After that, you got to go into who you are. Who are you? What's your personality? You got to think about your brand as a personality, not as a company, I don't think. You got to think about it as a personality.
When you're building your brand, your personality, are you focusing more on what you want to be or what you are now?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, you got to go back to your core, who you are, what you stand for.
Yeah.
And then you got to think into the future like, well, you know, that's a good question. Wait, hold on. Let me think about it a little bit more. Might have stumped me on that one. No,
you're good.
Actually, I don't think the future. No, you got to think about who you are, your personality, your core values. And although you want to have this end goal, I mean, you're going to get there, but that's your personality. You know what I mean? You got to hold on to that. But so there is such thing as a rebrand that happens often.
Sure.
And, you know, 10, 20 years into a company, they say, you know, this isn't us no more. Yeah. People change and companies change. So sometimes there is that rebranding. Like let's switch it up. Let's change it. Get back to, you know, who we are today.
Yeah.
Versus who we are. And that's actually, you're a sports dude. There's a lot of that going on these days.
Yes.
You know what I mean? A lot of the rebrands, you know, we're not into this no more. That's not who we are. Not the message we're trying to send. Let's switch it up. That's going on a lot these days.
Yeah. It's happening a lot. Like, you know, specifically for me in sports, right? For baseball, for football, like a team will change. Like, I don't know if you know, like for baseball, the Florida Marlins, their logo was like this big fish, and they're the Florida Marlins, and they have very like classic like pinstripe uniforms, and like they were looking for like to grab the older crowd in Florida to go watch the Marlins play. They rebranded themselves into the Miami Marlins and changed their colors from a black and like darker green to a bright green, a bright blue, and a bright orange. Yeah, and they changed their logo to like a big M, and their logos are now very like bright, and their stadium is bright. Like they've changed it to try and be more targeting to the city.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. I started seeing that logo on people's hats, and I was like, "What is that?" You know, because I'm not like keeping up with sports like that so much. But then I definitely recognize when I see a new logo, like, what is that? It catches my eyes for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. So a lot of the series is very much focused on creators, maybe individual, maybe working for people. So if I'm just an individual creator, I'm making YouTube videos a lot, I'm working really hard in my basement to make something work. Why is it important for me to have a brand? Like, I'm not a company.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, it really depends on where you're trying to go and where you're what direction you're going in.
Yeah.
But I mean, in reality, we're a walking brand all day. Ben Cason is a brand. Jacob Rivera is a brand. And if you talk about it in the human sense, then your face is the logo, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I see your face, all the connections that I've ever made with you, the trust relationship that I've ever built with you, who I think you are, and the feeling you give me, I'm seeing that in you. So
interesting.
But it helps a lot. It helps a ton if you're like doing an influencer type of thing, all that marketing on Instagram, all that stuff. You're trying to promote your own self. Some people will come up with a brand name, like I did when I was doing my thing. I did Rivera Creative Solutions, and I created a logo. But you could also do something like who's an influencer, like Joe Rogan or something. You know what I mean? And you go to his page, and he has all the same colors, fonts. It all has the same look, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's an important thing because when you see something, you're on this Instagram feed or whatever it might be. There's so much noise. There's so much stuff on there. And we know this, you know, where we work at, there's so much stuff. You got to grab the attention. And when people see, you know, that same thing over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And they love that and they start to build that trust. Next time they see it, they might not even need to see Joe Rogan's face or whoever it might be. They just see that color with the font on it and they're like, I know exactly who this is before even looking at who posted it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah. Connection. It's all about connection.
So let's then switch it up a little bit more now. So let's say hypothetically, like I've got my business going. I've been going since 1964. Like, you know, I've got my business going, but I'm starting to feel like maybe I need to make a switch on my brand. When is the moment where you're like, okay, let's rebrand something? Is there like key factors to pay attention to there, or is it just a feel?
Yeah, there's definitely a certain time and definitely like red flags, I would call them.
Interesting.
When you're like, oh, you know, we might need to do a rebrand. Yeah. And there's also been times where I've had people ask me, like, can you rebrand me? We want to do this and that. And sometimes, you know, as a professional, you got to say, you know what? You have a solid brand and you don't need this.
It's not worth it.
Sometimes you don't need it. Yeah. But that's in the case when people are just like, we just want a different look. But like, I mean, imagine if Coca-Cola just changed their look today, did a whole new logo, like,
all those billions of dollars.
We love that logo. We love the color. Don't do that. Don't do that to us. Yeah. But there's certain instances where you would, like, for example, I know it's a little controversial, but you know, like the Washington football team. Yeah, sure. So I don't know how long they've been around, but that was their logo, that was their colors, that was their name, mascot, whatever you want to call it, and people loved it. Until they didn't. And the world has changed. And that's no longer the message. And they might not even realize that was the message they're sending. But now that they're aware of it, they have to change that. Yeah. That's not who they are. Maybe if that's who they were, they'd stay with it, but it's not no more. Sure. So they have to change that, you know. So the world could make you have to change like that. Or you could have to change your own self. For example... Another good example of a rebrand recently, this is kind of like not as popular of a company. That's okay. Yeah. I thought it was an awesome rebrand. Wix, the website builder, has a software that they use called Corvid, and that helps you build out your website and all that. Yeah. But COVID came up, and
now you might need to change your name.
That's, you know, people don't like COVID very much. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also when you read it, COVID, your brain automatically is putting the R in there. Corvid. So they did a whole rebrand into Velo. Now it's Velo, and they did a super awesome thing. Gotcha. Who's another good rebrand? Let's think of a good one.
Well, you know, Mountain Dew's rebrand. I don't know if you know, like Mountain Dew back in like the 70s and the 80s, they're like old thing was like an old man, like that was like out on the mountains. Like that was their logo. It was like the old guy with the Mountain Dew, like, you know, like the pioneer. And
Yeah, I
they
never
changed
heard
it to
that
be
one.
like incredibly, you know, they're very modern.
Yeah.
They changed it from the full on like script letters of Mountain Dew to MTN Dew, different colors. Like I've always thought like they're a very modern looking soda. And so they've changed that up.
Yeah,
Their
I never
old,
heard that one. That's a good one.
their old slogan used to be, "It'll tickle your innards." Look it up. When they started, that was their first.
Yeah, there's some funny
It's worth
stuff out
switching.
there. There's definitely some funny stuff out there. We've even seen like the worst logos ever. I like to see those pop up on Instagram. It's like, why would
It's
you
like, what
ever
are we
do
thinking
that?
here?
But no, yeah. I mean, sorry, microphone.
Oh, you're fine.
But yeah, there's definitely time and place for a rebrand. If the world has changed, if you've changed, you should probably change your brand. You should probably change. You know what I mean? But if everybody loves you and you still love yourself, and maybe you're just kind of not happy with the colors, I might not recommend it.
Gotcha.
Like I said, if Coca-Cola was like, you know what, I'm really sick of these letters. We've had these for 100 years plus.
Yeah.
I'm really sick of that. I'd be like, you're crazy, because that's worth $1 million or more, like
Oh, sure.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You take away the soda, you take away the ingredient, the cans and everything, and you could sell that brand just as it is for millions.
Yeah. My brother has a Coca-Cola t-shirt. Yeah. It's just, that's
brand
what it is.
loyalty.
Yeah. Brand loyalty. All right. So let's have you pull the curtain a little bit. Let's see behind the scenes here for Wake Up. So Wake Up Pueblo's branding, you know, tell me about it. Tell us what went into choosing that. I know you weren't here whenever it was chosen, but take me through like what's behind the Wake Up Pueblo brand that you like so much.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like the look of stuff.
Yeah. The look of stuff, names, fonts.
I can't take too much comment on like the look of things. I think our logo is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm not sure if it was exactly done on purpose. I haven't got the full scoop from Paige. I would love to hear it one day, but I'm pretty sure she did it intentionally. But you have the arrow in between the W and U.
I'm sure that's purpose.
It has to be intentional. Brilliant move. Love it.
Yeah.
So going back to just the basics of logo design, I love that. But I think the true brand is, you know, the people that's inside. And the way we walk and the way we move and the way we talk. If you notice, we all have like certain things in common. You know, a lot of people are like big on community, big on creativeness, and big on just, you know, helping. Giving, how much can we give, help people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the Wake Up brand. You know what I mean? Again, you know, we started off quick, fast, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Definitely probably the brand is going to evolve, I think. But the personality and the main core traits of community building, helping, and innovation is definitely going to always stick around, I think.
I love it. Cool. All right, Jacob, I think my last question for you here is, you know, you mentioned like, if you look at Wake Up Pueblo, you can tell like what the core things are. You can really pay attention to the community building, to content creation, to creativity. And you think that's definitely what Wake Up Pueblo is about. Let's be like, how do you be really honest with yourself and figure out what those traits are of your company or yourself as a creator? How do you find out what that is?
That's definitely a hard thing.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely tough. Just even sit. I mean, first of all, you got to just look yourself in the mirror. I mean, if you're starting it up and you're all by yourself, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, hey, what do I care about?
Yeah.
If it's a team thing, you know, you got to sit there with your team and you got to hash that out. Sometimes there's even disagreements, but in a real cohesive team, I think everyone's like on the same page. Like here, everyone's on the same page.
Sure.
And I mean, it's just an awesome team, but I think it takes a lot of time. And sometimes a lot of people start and they don't even really know. Going back to that thing, a lot of times people skip the step because they don't even really realize it. 5-10 years down the road, they say, hey, wait a minute, let's do that rebrand. And
you don't have a foundation on the stuff you've built.
Let's really focus in and really look at it. But I think you gotta, if you really want to do good business wise in a creative sense, I think you gotta nail that down right away. But I mean, I can't really tell you how to like talk yourself into figuring out who you are. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Makes sense, Jacob. Awesome, man. Hey, thank you again. I appreciate you. You could definitely like tell from this conversation just like the wealth of knowledge that Jacob has on this. It's huge.
Hey man, I gotta say, you know, disclaimer, I'm not what do you say? I would say I'm an expert, but really we're learning every day. You know what I mean? We're learning all the time. And
getting better. Everybody's getting better.
I have this content of branding, design, all this stuff that I consume like it's part of my diet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's definitely ever evolving, and we gotta, keep on gaining the knowledge all the time, I think. So disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I'll say I'm an expert, but truly I know that there's more to learn always.
Sure. And so if a young creator is listening to this and hears you and is inspired, how can they connect with you? How can they follow you, Jacob?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Jacob the Designer on Instagram. That's the with a A.
Okay.
Jacob the Designer. And forgive me, I kind of neglected my Instagram up until recently. I'm like, man, being busy and stuff. But now I'm like, you know what? I really need to focus up on that stuff.
Yeah.
And build my own brand at the same time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
For a while, I was, getting into it deep, but then I got busy. I hate that excuse, but I got busy and building up my 14K Names brand. By the way, 14knames.com.
Yeah, and that's your jewelry
nice
business.
jewelry.
Yeah.
That's my brand. You go check that one out on Instagram too. But no, if you're a young creative, I'd love to connect. I love to help people. So, hit me up.
Good.
DM me.
Hit him up. DM him. Yeah, and I think that goes for all of the people in this series, by the way, all of us. We
for sure.
love to help you out. We were all where you're at. Yeah, thank you so much, Jacob. I appreciate you. And, I think if you're going to take one thing away from this conversation, branding is your foundation. And branding, it's big for your relationship. I mean, like, your company or you are having a relationship with the people that are consuming it, and your brand is a representation of that. So make sure it's a focus for you. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Wake Up Podcast for Ben Cason and Jacob Rivera. Have a great rest of your day, as well as check out some of our other stuff on Wake Up Pueblo, our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, our TikTok. It just keeps going. We're all over the place.
All over. Omnipresence.
Omnipresence, baby. Go check it out. As well as if you want more podcast content, you can go find out more about Jacob right here on our Wake Up Podcast. Go scroll down a little bit. It's Get to Know Jacob Rivera, as well as the other members of our team right here, as well as we got other podcasts, Pueblo Passion, Next Man Up, Influential Women. You can find that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and some video content on YouTube.
Dropping bangers over here.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff to plug. You guys gave me a lot to plug over here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.